what it is called Kurdistan. Unfortunately, many people, I mean, in the region, they don't like this name, but it doesn't matter if they like it or not. So this name has been there for hundreds of years. And then we talk about the fight against ISIS, when the Kurds played the key role against ISIS in the land with the US support. So we talk about those issues in our talk today. The first slide, when people talk about Middle East, you see that it is fine, but you cannot understand the Middle East looking at this map. It is not drawn by people of the Middle East. After the First World War, the Ottoman Empire collapsed, and the Europeans, in particular British and French people, came and drew this map for the people there. They made some countries with one city. They left millions of people without a country. They make a train line, a border between Turkey and Syria, and they built Iraq, connecting 3 different provinces, which they don't have lots of to share. So this is all problematic. That's why you cannot understand the Middle East by looking this map. How to understand the Middle East then? Khalid, you go to the next slide. Yeah, this is the map, we love it. So this is the ethnic groups of the Middle East. As you see, the Turks are in green, the Kurds in red, Arabs in yellow, and Persians. And the Azeris are also very similar color to the Turks, because both of them are from Turkic origin. So these are the Kurds. As you see, it is divided between Iraq, Iran, Syria, and Turkey. The majority of Kurds are living in Turkey. And we, as Kurds, I mean, if you are talking about the Kurds, they call it Kurdistan. As Turks, in Turkey, this word is banned by law. If you mention Kurdistan, calling this region Kurdistan, you will be in jail. That's very simple. So while in Iraq, nowadays the situation is much better, because Kurdistan region of Iraq is a federal region by law after the US invasion. And we talk about all those things. In Iran, what we call soft assimilation, because the Kurds and the Persians are from the same origin. Both of them are Iranian nations. So mostly the Persians feel that, hey, the Kurds are also Persians, it doesn't matter. And it is like a soft assimilation, because Kurdish language and Persian language are very similar in a way, so they could actively work on that matter. And in Syria, the Kurds are already minority in Syria, and after the Syrian independence, after the Second World War, so Syrian government counted them as refugees, and they withdrew their ID from there. Their kids couldn't study because they don't have an ID. They couldn't own a house because they don't have an ID. So then that's what we call it Kurdistan, the land of the Kurds, and the Kurds are living here. So let's move to the next slide. Rojbash. Rojbash, that's what I'm always teaching people in the hallway. Rojbash means good morning. So if you see any Kurdish person, you may tell Rojbash, and they feel happy because they feel their language is there. So that's a great word to learn. Rojbash. Roj basically means day, bash means good, good day or good morning. Just if you like to remember, that would be great. So Kurdish language consists of 4 main dialects, similar to any other language. Kurdish also have some different dialects, but the only difference is because the Kurds don't have a state, so that's why they don't have a standard language. When you look the Arabic language, there are tens of dialects. They don't, even some of them, they don't understand each other. Moroccans is quite different with Egyptian. Egyptian is different with Iraqi, but there's standard Arabic, which is taken from Quran. So that's why they have the standard. the Turks, they make Istanbuli Turkish their standard. Persians, they take from Hafid, but the Kurds, they don't have a standard language. We are still talking about the Kurdish dialects, but generally, the three Kurdish dialects, Northern Kurdish or Kurmanji, Central Kurdish or Sorani, Southern Kurdish, Laki, are mutually, they understand each other. If they studied in Kurdish, if they have connections. But in case of Turkey, the Kurds live in Turkey because their language was banned by Turkish law. So most of them, they even forgot Kurmanji. That's why it's really impossible to understand the other Kurdish dialects. So this is, somewhat just about Kurdish language. What do we mean by Kurdish? So Sorani Kurdish is in the center. It is this one. So it is much more developed than Kurmanji Kurdish because when Iraq was founded in 1920s, the Kurds declared independence kingdom of southern Kurdistan by Sheikh Mahmoud in Suleimania. Then the British bombed them and agreed on some cultural rights. So they opened some Kurdish schools. That's why Sorani developed step by step. While at the same time, Kurmanji was banned in Turkey. If you use even on street, you will easily get arrested. To say Slav in Kurdish Rojbash, there's a jail. So it's difficult to understand this situation, but the case, and still the language of a country like Turkey, according to the Turkish constitution, only Turks live in Turkey. And then who are those, 20 million people? Who knows? So, okay, religion in Kurdistan. Basically, the majority of Kurds are Sunni Muslims, but there are also other religions in Kurdistan. Christians, there are lots of Christians in all parts of Kurdistan. There are Yazidis living here. They faced the genocide. When ISIS came, so the Yazidis were in really difficult situation. And Yarsans, Yarsan, Ahli Haq, there are some different names for this religion. So around Kirkuk, around Mosul, in Iraqi Kurdistan, in south of Khanaqin, just next to Baghdad, there are some Yarsans there. Also on the other side of Kurdistan, Iranian Kurdistan, around Kermanshah and Ilam, there are Yarsas. So they are famous for making tanbur. Tanbur is a kind of saz. So they play music. It is kind of their worship. And we also have like Shia Kurds. So, and Alawi Kurds. Alawi and Shia are very similar, two branches of Shi'i Islam, but they are also different in a way. So that's why some people are called Alawi mostly in Turkey, while here they are called Shia Kurds. And yeah, that's the main religion types in Kurdistan. The majority is Muslim, but religion matters for the Kurds because the Kurds, we discussed that the majority of Kurds are Sunni Muslim, but they don't work to have a Sunni Muslim Sharia applied. That's why the Islamic parties in Kurdistan, they have not lots of supporters. So they do their daily worship, but they are not seeking for like Islamic Caliphate or Islamic State and things like that. When you look any of the elections, Islamic parties are really weak in Kurdistan compared to, look the other parts. And if you look Iraqi Kurdistan, they never exceed 15%. And in Iran is the same way. In Turkey is the same way. And in the last election, the Turkish president supported a Kurdish Islamic group, and they gave them some seats in Istanbul. They couldn't get any seat in Kurdish areas, so they gave them just to support this kind of ideology and put it into the Kurdish areas. That they want, like, I think 2 or 3 seats in Istanbul by the Turkish votes. So it was something really interesting in, I mean, Turkish politics, because they really want to push like Islamic politics into Kurdish areas, but it didn't work until now. I don't know about tomorrow. So the Kurdish mythology, you see, I mean, for the Kurds, Nowruz is very important. Many other nations around celebrating Nowruz, from Persians, Afghan, Central Asian nations, all celebrating Nowruz. But what makes Kurdish Nowruz is, I mean, different. The Kurdish understanding for Nowruz is quite different with others. So, I mean, there are some Persian mythology for Nowruz, like there's a mythology, Jamshid went to the sky and brought back the sun then spring came back, things like that. The Kurdish understanding for Nowruz is very clear. They link it to the Median Empire, which is also very problematic, because some people say, hey, Medians are not Kurds. Who knows? I mean, like it is before Christianity, but the Kurds claim that Medians are their ancestors, and they have a proof for that, because the Medians were speaking in northwestern Iranian branch of language, which is the same branch with Kurdish, and they were powerful in the current region, which is called Kurdistan. And the Kurds feel that Kawa, the blacksmith, killed the Hag, the tyrant, and then this success, they lead a bonfire on the mountains. That's how Nowruz started, which is related to Persian literature. It is something else. The other nations celebrating for Nowruz to start of spring and things like that. So basically, Kurdish understanding for Nowruz is very political. It is about fighting against, I mean, suppression. The understanding of Nowruz. That's why, I mean, it's always Kurdish style of Nowruz face bans. And for example, in Iraq, in Iran, in Syria, in Turkey, there are always problems related to Nowruz celebrations. Also, if you like epics and literature, Mamuzin is a great Kurdish piece to read. Talks about love, and it is from, I mean, it's an oral literature, but it was written in 15th, 16th century. So it talks about how, I mean, Kurdish love, because the Kurds are really famous for good fighters, and it's always been like that in history. So if you like to learn about the Kurdish literature, Mamuzin is a great piece. Also, there's Shamaran and Shirin and Farhad. But there, I mean, even in Persian literature and many other literatures, they talk about Shirin and Farhad. But I mean, it happens according to the Kurdish literature in Bestun mountain, which is in Kermanshah, and Kermanshah is a Kurdish city. So I don't know about others, what they say about the Shirin and Farhad, but this is a good example. I mean, because shortly Farhad drew some things in the mountains, and it's still available in Kermanshah if you ever visit the Iranian part of Kurdistan. So now it's time to talk about, okay, the most populated Kurdish cities. There are some photos. It should be, yeah, it is Diyarbakir. In Kurdish, it's called Amar. It is the biggest Kurdish city in Turkish Kurdistan. Kermanshah or Kermanshan, the biggest Kurdish city in Iranian Kurdistan. All of these cities are above 1 million population. I mean, I just put some. Yeah, Arbil or Hawler, it's actually a very historical city, but this is the modern side of Arbil. I thought, hey, I put like the historical sites in Kermanshah and Diyarbakir. Let's put a modern view of Arbil. Yeah, and here it is Van, or in Turkish they call it Van. So it's another, I mean, one of the key cities in Kurdistan. Yeah, so we talk a little bit about history. That's the map of Median Empire. It is very, I mean, many people discuss that they were not Kurds. The Kurds feel that they were Kurds. Persians never claimed that they were Persians. So because their capital was Hamadan or Al-Batana at that time, it is here, and this is Kurdish populated area. And as I said, Median language is northwestern Iranian branch of language, which is the same branch with Kurdish. So that's why it is before Christianity. It doesn't matter if they were Kurds or not, but it's just like how Kurds feel. So I wrote those maps. It is really funny because I mean, Kurdistan, the word of Kurdistan is banned by law in the last century in Turkey. And this is Ottoman map. It clearly shows where is Kurdistan. It's written Kurdistan. So they wrote, it's their map, it's not our map. So it is Ottoman Empire formal map shows where is Kurdistan. If someone doesn't know, so it would be really helpful. The year of this map is 1893. And this also shows something else related to Iraq. So it shows southern Iraq was called Al-Iraq al-Arabi, the Arabic Iraq. And south of Iran, for some reason, it's written Al-Iraq al-Ajami. So Ajami, if someone helps me to translate that.
Persian Iraq.
Persian Iraq. So if you are really looking for where Iraq comes from, but for some reason, I mean, there were lots of problems because of the Iraqi Kurdistan. At that time, it was called Mosul Vilayet. It was a province in Ottoman Empire. So they didn't want to join Iraq. Even Turkey at that time claimed it's a part of Turkey, but at the end, it is in Iraq. So, and in Kurdish history, this is very important to understand the Kurds. So after the Median Empire, there were not Kurdish empire. There were mostly the empires were Persian or Turkish around. But the Kurds are always in those empires. They, I mean, they love self-determination. None of those empires were central. I mean, the Ottoman Empire, during the Ottoman Empire, it is true the Ottoman Turks were running the empire. But if you look within the empire, there were some Kurdish emirates. They were running their land. And that's why at that time there were not Kurdish problems, because they were running their land. And they were also part of the Ottoman Empire, which they didn't have a problem with that. But I mean, within the nation states, the thing will change. Yeah, this is the current Kurdish populated areas. So as you see, it is Turkey nowadays. It is Turkish Kurdistan, what we call it. It's Iraq. So in Iraq, there are two colors. One of them, it is Iraqi federal Kurdistan, and there's another color, which is half of the land. According to Iraqi constitution, it is called disputed areas. So in the constitution, it was supposed to, I mean, a referendum in 2005, later in 2007. So it should happen to understand the people of those cities, what they want. If they want to be a part of Iraq, let them be. If they want to be a part of Kurdish federal region, let them be. But Iraq never did that referendum, and they don't want to. So because they feel it's all the same country. But this is anyway. This is an article of the Constitution, and it is very problematic. Why it is that much problematic? Because the oil is there. So the oil is here. Most of them oil in Kirkuk and surrounding, and this is the Yazidis. These are, I mean, like the key geographical areas. So then let's talk about each part of Kurdistan alone. Okay, now we have 4 countries. The Kurds are living in 4 countries. the Kurds, I mean, nobody wants to count the Kurds. We just estimate. So, because nobody wants to hear the number. But as estimation, it is supposed to be around 20 million or more Kurds living in Turkey. So they are basically living in this area. In the 2014, when the peace process was signed between PKK, Kurdistan Workers' Party, who's in a terrorist list by Turkey and even the United States, but the Kurds won't look the party in this way anyway. So there were a peace process in 2014, and the Kurdish political party won the election in the majority of these areas. But after, I mean, the election was happened in June 2015. Then the Turkish government say, hey, it was not a good election. They restart the election, and the street fighting started in Turkey. So we're going to talk about that as well. Turkey was founded in the 20s after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. When the nation state of Turkey was founded, Kurdish language, dress, letters, everything in Kurdish was banned. And in their constitution, it is clearly written, only Turks live in Turkey. And still, nowadays, if you go to the Kurdish cities in Turkey, like Diyarbakir, Van, Mardin, in all those mountains, it is written, Namatmor Turkum Diyan. How a person be happy to be a Turk. The 1 million Kurdish population in a city, they wrote in the mountain, how I'm happy because I'm a Turk. So, and the people in this city are not Turk. So it is, that's why it is very problematic. Then Kurds started fighting for their independence in the 30s. What happened? So there are some ethnic cleansing actions happening. For example, the one in Ararat rebellion, in Zeeland genocide, according to the sources, plus 40,000 people killed, including women, children, and it's all available in Turkish newspapers and journals. I'm going to show it. I mean, not on the Kurdish sources, in the Turkish state journals, and it's all mentioned what they did, how they did. And then in Dersim rebellion, Dersim genocide happened, more than 50,000 people killed in Dersim, which the majority of them were Alawi Kurds. They have two, they were victims twice, because they were Kurds, they were not Turks, and they were Alawis, they were not Sunni Muslims. So that's why then after the Dersim genocide or ethnic cleansing, there's a silence for about 50 years because people are afraid to talk about Kurdishness. So they shut their mouth and they started talking in Turkish. They thought it's a good idea just to protect themselves. But it goes even further. So that's why in 1978, some students found Kurdistan Workers' Party, PKK, and they started fighting back in 1984. So the first fight between Turkish state and the Kurdish fighters took place. At that time, there are lots of researches, PhD thesis, master thesis, talking about the Kurds are mountain Turks. There's no something like being Kurd. They are not well educated and they are mountain Turks. You can find all that in Turkish education system. And then, as I said, in 1984, PKK was founded and fighting started between both parties, which still continue. In 2013 to 2015, as I talked about that, there were a peace process. Erdogan, the president of Turkey, said, okay, that's enough, so let's have a peace. And they signed peace agreement. But when ISIS came, so something else happened. Then fighting started again, and I talk about why. But interestingly, PKK, which is, as I said, it is in a terrorist list, but they played a key role for saving the Yazidis in Iraq and the fight against ISIS. So that's how, I mean, it is all very confusing and complex, because PKK starting, fighting Turkey and ISIS at the same time. Then they also have they are really powerful in directing Kurds. So whatever they say, you can see that what happened in the elections. In the last election in Istanbul, there were like CHP, which is the Turkish opposition party, and AKP, the current ruling party. The Kurds supported CHP, and the ruling party lost the mayor of Istanbul and Ankara because of that. So now they are really playing like a political key players in Turkey, and one of the Turkish fear, the number of Kurdish population it is increasing fast, much faster than the Turkish population. And I've heard some Turkish professors says we really need to think about that, because after 100 years, Turkey would be Kurdi. I mean, who knows? The population is growing really fast. The Kurdish families have 7 kids, 10 kids. The Turkish families have 2 kids, and Erdogan mentioned that a lot. So that's why we are always telling, hey, solve this problem now. So after 100 years, who knows? Okay, the key leaders in Turkey, Abdullah Öcalan, who's in Turkish jail since 1999. He was arrested in Kenya. He's the founder of PKK, and he's the political theorist, and he suggested democratic confederalism, which is now a system applied in Syrian Kurdistan. So this man has he's the most influential man, and he's really the one who signed the peace process with Turkey. So, but he's in jail since 1990. But there are some others. Mayor of Diyarbakir, who won the elections, became the mayor, and there's something in Turkey called kayyum. So, okay, it doesn't matter you win the election or not. If I don't like you, I'll put you in jail. This lady is in jail right now. Ahmad Turk, another key player, mayor of Mardi. He was in jail until last year because his health is above 80 years old. So he's like, now he's at home on the Turkish hand. Leyla Zana, she spent, if you believe or not, she spent more than 10 years in jail because of saying, I'm swearing for the people of Turkey, not for the Turkish people. She won a seat in Turkish parliament in 1991 when she said her words, say, okay, for the people of Turkey, not for the Turks. And then Leyla Zana with her friends were sentenced for 15 years. European Court in 2003 asked Turkey to release them, and they did. Salahuddin Demirtas, the co-president of SDP, the biggest pro-Kurdish party, because no one can say I'm a Kurdish party in Turkey. There are no Kurds according to the constitution. So he won more than plus 6 million votes. And now he's in jail. Who knows for what? For doing politics, to talk about Kurdish rights. So according to the ideology of Abdullah Öcalan, women should be in power. That's why all the Kurdish parties follow his ideology. There's co-presidency. There's one lady, one man in power. And I'm sure you may hear about Jin, Jian, Azadi. Jin, woman, Jian, life, Azadi, freedom. His idea was Kurdish problem is not Kurdish problem. Kurdish problem is the problem of the Turks, the Arabs, the Persians. They need also to understand if they don't solve this problem, there won't be, a peaceful future in the Middle East. So this is, from the genocides dating back in the 30s. This is a Turkish newspaper. It is Daily Cumhuriyet in 1930, talking about the genocides happening in Kurdistan. So temizlik başladı, Zilan. So basically, they mentioned that in Agri is a Kurdish city, they cleansed. There's no one left. And it's Turkish newspaper. They recorded all this, what happened. And this is another newspaper, headline of Daily Current 1936. It says, Kürtlük yok. Yalnız Türklük var. There's no Kurdishness. There's no Kurdish. There's no something called Kurdish. They just don't understand they are Turkish, but they don't understand that. So you can find hundreds of researchers saying that. Oh, it's 1999. Ahmet Kaya, the best singer of Turkey. He was honored for being the best singer of Turkey. And during the celebration, he said, okay, guys, I'm really happy you honored me. I'm the best singer of Turkey. But because I'm originally Kurdish, I would like to sing one Kurdish song. And they wrote, Vay Çalasas. So, hey, this honor. And he ran from Turkey and he did in German. Just because I'm originally Kurdish, I have hundreds of Turkish songs. Just let me to sing one song in my language. That's how it was. The situation. This is Diyarbakir, Ahmet. When the Kurdish mayors won the election, directly they wrote in Kurdish language, Büyükşehir Belediyesi Diyarbakir, and Şaridariye Bajar Ramazan Ahmet. So they wrote in Kurdish and Turkish. And then they put Kayyum on the city, on the mayor, and they put down the Kurdish language. And this is not Syria. It is Nusaybin in Mardin in 2016 during the street fight. They ruined all the city. And as you see, they are really proud of that. So during the street fight in Turkey, after the peace process, so there were a coup happened in Turkey. So the coup happened in Istanbul and Ankara, but they ruined the Kurdish cities. And this is Diyarbakir. I'm really suffering because of that. Everyone in the world keep their history. So, for example, the historical London, the historical city, Paris, Moscow, Rome. Diyarbakir is one of the historical cities just like those cities. And you see in 2000, the date is November 7th, 2015, July 10th, 2017. They ruined all this history. It is a history of thousands of years. So it is satellite images. And Hasan Kef, a town, thousands of years, they built a dam on the town, and the town now is underwater. Who do that for their history? Do they do the same thing for their historical towns? This was about Turkey. Let's talk about Iran a little bit. Okay, the Kurds partially were autonomous during the Qajars era. When the nation states appeared, basically Iran was monarchy system. during that time. In 1946, the Kurds and ISIS wanted independence with the Russian support, and they declared their independence. Republic of Kurdistan was announced in 1946, but it took just 1 year and collapsed. During the Islamic Revolution in 1979, so when the mullahs came and the Shah went, so the Kurds didn't go to, they boycotted the referendum, and they didn't vote for the Islamic State of Iran. And that's why Khomeini, the leader of the Iranian revolution, started fighting against the Kurds in 1979. And in Iran, the assimilation process was not like the other parts. Well, it was not like Turkey and Iraq. So it was more soft assimilation, because, as I said, Kurdish language and Persian language are from the same root. They share lots of similarities. So the assimilation there were much more soft. But in the last process of Mahsa or Jina in Kurdish, the Kurds also played a great role. I should speak really fast because of the time. So these are the key leaders in Iran. So Qazi Muhammad, who's the most well-respected Kurdish man, who declared the Kurdish independence in Mahabad and hung it there, while there's Pajak party and Democrats and Komala and some different parts. So this is the declaration of Kurdistan independence in 1946. And this is when Khomeini in 1979 declared war against the Kurds because they boycotted the referendum, all those things. And the last Iranians went to the street with the Kurdish slogan, Janjian Azadi. In Persian, it becomes Zan Zindagi Azadi. So it comes from Kurds in Turkey into Kurds, Iran, then Persians and Afghans. Now we are talking about Iraq quickly. Kurdish part of Iraq linked to Iraq in 1921. They started rebellion against the new state, and Great Britain, they gave the Kurds some basic rights like education in Kurdish. And since that time, since 2020s, the continuous conflict between Kurds and Iraq agreed to recognize the Kurdish autonomous in 1970, but later just signed the Algeria agreement, and I'll talk about the Algeria agreement. And there were some genocides happened during the Iran-Iraq war. Mainly Halabja was bombed by chemical weapon. In 1 minute, 5,000, the population of the city were killed by chemical weapon in 1988, sorry. So during the Iran-Iraq war. And after the Kuwait invasion, the Kurds uprised, and in 1991, they founded Kurdistan region of Iraq, which is semi-autonomous region. And after the US invasion in Iraq in 2003, the region became a federal region in Iraq. And they also played a key role against ISIS, fight against ISIS. While in 2017, the Kurds ran a referendum for independence, and 97% of the Kurds voted for independence, but it was failed because Turkey, Iraq, and Iran closed the borders, and the Kurds canceled. Now there's really a big economic crisis because of this referendum. And the current situation in Iraq, a few months ago, it was in March, the Iraqi Kurdistan pipelines closed by Iraq and Turkey, so they cannot sell their oil now. And the Iraqi government doesn't give the budget to Kurdistan. And currently, it is the 4th month the people of Kurdistan region, they haven't received their salary. So Iraq want to be more center-based government, and we don't know what happened in the next few years. And Iraq, the Iraqis are not the only people to be blamed. The Kurds also took wrong actions. Mainly, these are the leaders of Iraqi Kurdish parties. Actually, we also, the Kurds, have lots of mistakes in Iraq. One of the mistakes, as you see, the main two parties, PUK and KDP, both of them became tribal parties. So they put their sons instead of themselves, and which is not in Kurdish favor. But I mean, the Kurdish people are really suffering because of those parties and because of Iraq at the same time. So internally, we also have problems. It's not the fault of the others always. So as you see, the Barzanis, the father found the KDP, then his son became the president of Kurdistan region. Now his son's son, so is the prime minister of Kurdistan region of Iran, which is something that Kurdish people refuse it. I mean, mostly because it is very tribal. PUK followed the same situation when Manjara, the president of Iraq, did, and now his son Bafal became the president of his party, which is not something good. And as I said, the Islamic parties are not really in power. They never exceed 15%. Abdullah Öcalan had, I mean, also he has much influence on Kurdish region in Iraq. Actually, he has influence everywhere among the Kurds. So this is just a photo from independence of Kurdistan in Suleymania in 1921, later failed. This is Algeria agreement. So the Kurds, that's why I mean, the Kurdish issue is not a Kurdish issue. You see from that picture, Iraq and Iran signed to end Kurdish revolution. Instead, Iraq gave some land to Iran. In the agreement, I think it was in 1974, 75. Thanks for correcting me. So later on, 1 year later, Kurdish rebellion started again. And Iraq said to Iran, hey, I want my land back. And they didn't. That's one of the main reasons Iran-Iraq war started. Millions of people lost their life. So, I mean, in all these countries, the Kurds are not only people who suffer. You see the price of Turkish lira. Any fight happens, it decreases. So the Turks are also suffering. In Iraq and Iran, they killed millions of each other because of that. It is one of the main factors. In Syria, so it is Halabja, a chemical weapon used in Halabja 1988. So you see, and it was Kurdish uprising in 1991 when Kurdistan and when Saddam Hussein US invasion fall in Iraq. Photo of Kurdish referendum in 2017. And after the referendum, Iraq revenged and took the disputed areas again because they withdrew from the disputed areas when ISIS came. And the Kurdish Peshmerga went to those areas to keep them from the hand of ISIS. But after the referendum, Iraq said, hey, you are going to the independence, then I'm coming back to the disputed areas. And they went back to the lines, they closed the oil pipes, and yeah, lots of things going on, but because of the time, I cannot talk about all those issues. Syria and Kurdistan. Today, for the first time, the US planes downed one of the Turkish drones for first time in history on the Syrian Kurdistan sky, because an event happened last week in Turkey, and whenever something happened, Turkey bombing every single Kurd. As Trump said Erdogan is natural enemy of the Kurds. Trump said that, I mean, in his press conference. And they are on the land, they are really doing that. They bomb everywhere. And fortunately, to the people of Kurdish people in Syria, today the US jets downed one of the Turkish drones, and we don't know what happened next. But I mean, it's really problematic. Syrian Kurdistan is the smallest part of Kurdistan. After the 2011 Syrian revolution started, the Kurds took their land, similar to Iraq, happened in 1991. And now they are running their land. So they are US allies in fight against ISIS, and US supporting YPG and the parties there. While according to Turkey, those guys are terrorists. I mean, if you talk about YPG in Turkey, it's something like talk about ISIS, but nobody knows why. What's wrong? So because they have no terrorist attack at all. They never, I mean, put their bullet on Turkey. But because, I mean, who knows why? Nobody knows. And Turkey invaded both Afrin, the ethnic cleansed Afrin, which is 99% Kurdish population, and they ethnic cleansed it. And I'm showing with the support of the Gulf countries, some of the Gulf countries, Qatar and Kuwait. And to the Arabic Belt, they invaded some areas here just to make sure Kurds cannot reach to the sea. So, yeah, these are the, again, Abdullah Öcalan is the key leader for the Kurds in Syria. They are managing their region according to his ideology. You see, every single man, there's companion by a woman, so that's Jinjian Azadi. And also the Barzans have really influence in Syria. And this is Kurdish Syrian opposition. They are based in Turkey. So they are funded by some guys in Ankara. So the Syrian revolution started in 2011. And in the fight against ISIS, the Kurdish female fighters played a great role with the US support. And this is the statue of Arin Mirkan, who fought for the last person in Kobani, then US involved and armed the Kurds there. So this is the Kurds in Syria, and Turkey attacked a city of Afrin and invaded. And now you see there's no Kurdish language at all again in the city where Turkey invaded. They built houses for Arab people to go there. I don't know why. So you see, it is fight against ISIS, but I don't know if I have time to talk about that or not.
Well, we're getting close.
Yeah. So the Kurds played really a key role against ISIS, and on the land they were the only ones first fought ISIS, because Iraq withdrew, Syria withdrew, and the Kurds fought. Later, I mean, and that was when Arbil was about to fall, the capital of Kurdistan region. The president of the Kurdistan region at that time asked everyone to help. Nobody helped first. Then they asked PKK, and they came to the city, and it was a great time for the Kurds all united against the same enemy. Then Iran involved, then the US involved. So to save the Yazidis, also PKK played a great role there. They kept them in the mountains, and US involved, and the Kurdish Peshmerga, in all the parts fought together. It was really a key time. And in 2014, the Allies armed the Kurds against ISIS. So this is the town of Kobani. It was all surrounded by ISIS. The other part is Turkey. So they were looking the fight, and Erdogan said, hey, in a press conference, it's available on YouTube, you can find that. So he said, Kobani is ended and falls. Why you are still talking about that? There were still some very few fighters, but it never fell. And happily, it was the converting time against ISIS and the Islamic Caliphate defeated in this small town of Kobani. So the current situation is like that. In 1991, Iraq felt weak. The Kurds took their land in Iraq. In 2011, Syrian revolution started. Kurds actually took their land and some extra land, to be fair to say that. But but I mean the minorities, Christians. So they armed, and that's how confederation works. They armed everyone. The Christians did. The Arab tribes, defend yourself. Your language is. I mean, they even opened Sharqi University in Raqqa, which is a completely Arabic university. Well, they opened two universities, Kurdish university as well. They banned no one's language, and everyone speaks in their language. Everyone has a gun to just like whatever they want. So it's. I mean, the Europeans and the United States really, as we see, they love this kind of administration. So that's there, and it is rich by oil. But Turkey invaded Afrin, and currently, from 95% of the Kurdish population, currently it is said about 18% of the city remained Kurdish, and they brought people everywhere, even from Palestine. They built camps with the support of Qatar and Kuwait. I don't know, I mean, why those guys are supporting them, and to build a house on someone's land for someone else, it's all problematic. But what I see in the future, we don't know. Is it because the Iraqi Kurdistan is not stable right now? Iraq's central government really want to end, at least to control this region. We don't know what happens tomorrow. But it could be a lesson for Iran and Turkey. If they feel weak, a bulb will appear there, because the Kurds, they are rightless. If you don't let them to speak in their language, to study in their language, to have their culture, to have their music, so don't expect them to defend your country. It's very logical. And this is the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take any comment, any question. Or
Thank you very much. Yeah, the floor is open. If you are online and you'd like to ask a question, you can feel free to enter it into the chat and I can read it out. And let me stop that share. Right. Please.
Yeah,
yes,
please, yeah. And I ask, how is the relationship between the Armenian people and the Kurdish population, especially historically when the Armenian population were also inhabited the same cities and villages lived together throughout the centuries, you know. But today it's also a part of another story of by the nation state building projects too. But what can you say about specifically with the Kurdish and Armenian populations relationships?
That's a great question. I mean, it is clear Armenians were genocided in Turkey, and the Kurds were part of the genocide, unfortunately. We were not the policymakers at that time, but some Kurdish tribes were a part of the Ottoman and Turkish army. They have their hand in Armenian genocide. And the Kurdish leaders said that many times, and we are really sorry for what happened in history. And currently, we don't have any. We have really good relation. The Kurds have really good relationship with Armenians, and one day, if Kurdistan independence, I'm sure. I mean, there's a kind of idea among the Kurds to let those families survive, to remain and come back to their land, because we know what happened to them, and many Kurdish families hided them, protected them but we also understand there were some Kurdish tribes involved in the genocide happened during the First World War. So that's what I'm saying. And even Abdullah Öcalan and Barzani mentioned that many times. We are really sorry for what happened in history, and we feel responsible for that. But we were not the policymakers. We were not the leaders. We didn't, I mean, the Kurds didn't make the rules. So there were some tribes, nobody denied that. So that's what I can say. And one of the parliamentarians from Diyarbakir was an Armenian person who went to Turkish parliament on the Kurdish list, and the Kurds voted for him to go to the parliament. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm actually going to disagree with the optimism that you have about Kurds wanting to home Armenians, because at least in my upbringing, and still there's a lot of bias towards Armenians. Like, one can use the word Armenian to insult someone else. Like, in my experience, there were times that I would say something in favor of Armenians, and then people would simply say astaghfirullah. So maybe politicians have a different perspective, but I'm not sure if that is the perspective by every local Kurd.
That's also a great concern, because I mean, there's a Turkish policy even denying Armenian genocide, and the Kurds living in Turkey, and they are under influence of the Turkish education. So, but generally the Kurds, the educated Kurds, and the leaders of the Kurdish society, who's leading the Kurdish society? The parties. So they always mention that. But I mean, it's very clear until now. I mean, even the United States recognized Armenian genocide, like in the last 2-3 years. I can't remember in which year it was. So I mean, but the system, the education, it's all about, I mean, denying what happened a century ago. But the Kurds, I mean, the leaders, I'm mentioning the leaders, mentioned that many times, and they feel responsible. But we have, I mean, the Kurdish leaders have no power on the land to educate regular people.
So how would you, if you have to blame the Turkish policy for that, but how would you explain interviews done with Christians in Syrian Kurdistan, Iraqi Kurdistan, when they said they were opposed to having a Kurdish state because they think their violations as religious minority, their rights as being religious minorities would be violated? Because they didn't think that they were on the same page with Kurds of northern Syria and Iraqi Kurdistan.
Okay, so let's look the reality. What happened in Erbil? There's a neighborhood, Christian neighborhood. It's called Ankara. Even the government do not let the Muslims to buy houses in this area in respect for the Christians. They can study in their own language, and they have all the rights. If they don't want, I mean, independent Kurdistan, it's also understandable, because they also want, they have a strong relationship with the Christians in Baghdad and Mosul, so they don't want separation because of that. But I mean, I'm not a person responsible for what the Kurdish administration doing there, but as far as I know, there's, I mean, their language is studied. They have their own schools. They have their own areas, and the government will, like, what is their demands? What if they say, hey, the Kurds should not have an independence, I think it's not a right demand, because it's not.
No, I'm just talking about the local Christians from Syrian and the Iraqi Kurdistan when they oppose, because they also don't believe that there's like, they don't share the optimism that you have.
Okay, so
and these are just interviews with them that I watched. So.
Yeah, I mean, interviews also always can be biased. I'm also can be biased. So it's just reality. But who doing the interview? It matters. Who's talking? It matters. And the Christians now in Syria, they have the Kurdish administration there. They armed them, and their battalion, their group, they have at least more than 6,000 fighters. So protecting themselves. I mean,
That doesn't answer my question.
so that's what so that's what
So maybe your optimism is unique to you, that may not reflect reality.
yeah.
He's just an optimistic person.
My name is Hewa. Hewa means hope. So, I'm always hopeful, but I'm from a town which is at least 10 to 20% Christians, and we live together. And it is a good idea to go there and make a research how the Christians live in Kurdistan, how they like it. So that's something to research about. Then,
Let's do it.
yeah.
Let me ask you a question from our Zoom audience. I was wondering if you might speak a bit to the erasure of Zina Amini's Kurdish identity and Kurdish phrasing of woman life freedom from protests in Iran and around the world, and to the origin of the phrase women life freedom in Kurdish history.
Okay, so in Kurdish history, women always, have been powerful compared to Iran. Like we have women whose historian, like Mastura Ardalani, in the 18th century. You cannot find something like that around. There are, Adila Hanem, who were the Jaf tribe leader at the end of the 19th century. You cannot find things like that. So around it. And the Kurds, the modern understanding of Jin, Jiyan, Azadi comes from the Kurds in Turkey, in particular, Öcalan understanding for women, because it is felt that Kurds cannot be free if they don't free their ladies. And that's come from the Jinn must be free first, then we can do whatever it is together. But it has really a root in Kurdish history, in Kurdish literature, but as a political, co-leading parties, it all comes from Öcalan understanding, and it's repeated in all parts of Kurdistan, including Iranian Kurdistan, when Jina Amini was killed in Tehran for not wearing hijab. So then it becomes the whole Iran repeated the same phrase, Jin, Jiyan, Azadi becomes Zan, Zindagi, Azadi in Persian. So that was a good start. Now we see Persians, some Turks, some Arabs also following us to free women, to have a shared life together, so to live together. But if you, this kind of denial, if you deny my language, my culture, my clothes, you don't get somewhere.
Can I just add a little bit? I'm from northern Kurdistan or Turkish Kurdistan. The PKK movement comes from university leftist movement of the 70s. So the founders of PKK, two of them were women founders. Through conversations, their philosophy is that reality is made and remade through conversation and dialogue. So women within the PKK pushed men in there, saying that you are also our oppressor, what are we gonna do about it? So that started a feminist trend within that party. And finally, when war was declared on Turkish state, they saw that women fighters were more ferocious than men. Men could give up, but women were more determined fighters. And so they set up a women's army. Now, as opposed to men's army, there is a women's army with women commanders that women must liberate themselves. Men could help them, but they should be in charge. They should direct their lives. They should not beg for freedom or beg for liberation. They should create their own. And precisely this slogan was thrown in the battlefields of Syrian Kurdistan when they were doing the fight in Riyam al-Azadi. which means there is no life without women. Women are life givers. And then here it is, men take their lives away through crimes of different sorts, and women must have their own army, and they set up their army. In Kobani, it was women's army fighting with the men's army to defend the town against the Islamist or so appearing ISIS. And that was one of the reasons why ISIS attacked the Kurds. First was that they had satanic believers, the Yazidis, made up,
Yeah.
slogan. And two, women were in charge. And then the women were ululating in the battlefields against the ISIS. And the ISIS, supposedly strictly Islamists, thought that if you get killed by a woman in the battlefield, you're not gonna go to heaven. So anyway,
I don't know where that came from. I think that was something somebody in the media made up.
Oh, interesting.
I've never heard that. Anyway, but please.
well, you can read, you
Please,
can
go ahead,
use tons
please.
of them. But anyway, I just wanted this to come in.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for comments. And is there any other question or comment? Yes. please.
Thank you very much for your talk, and I especially appreciate the amount of maps you had, which made it easier to understand the situation. So what I'm wondering about is this. So the sort of semi-independent Iraqi Kurdistan has quite a bit of a border on Turkey, on Iran, and maybe a tiny bit with Syria. And obviously, say on the Turkish side and on the Iranian side, it would be the Turkish state or the Iranian state who controls the border. But on the Iraqi side, if you wish, do the Kurdish, do the people of the Kurdish autonomous government control the border? Or are there like border guards posted by the government out of Baghdad?
Since 1991, there were no-fly zone area. In this area, the United Nations built no-fly zone, so the Iraqi planes could not come back to the area. And then Iraq, the government, Saddam Hussein at that time, left the area for the Kurds. And it was not an independent state, but it was not a part of Iraq at the same time in reality. So there's a clear border between Iraq and Iraqi Kurdistan. Even nowadays, if you get an Iraqi visa, it is still, you need approval of the Kurdish administration to go to the Kurdish areas. But after the referendum, which, the United States asked the Kurds to not do that, and everyone asked the Kurds to not do that, but the Kurds, in particular the Barzani family, so it is time to be independent. So they did the referendum, and after that, then Iraq, became more powerful. So they feel more power nowadays. But generally, they can't they are coming back to the borders, to the oil fields and things like that. But what I'm seeing, in my point of view, I'm saying that in the long run, it won't be a strategic action for Iraq, because as far as I understand, Iraqi army cannot stay in the Kurdish cities, because Iraq was founded in 1920s for the first time. Iraqi government never could rule the Kurdish cities, in particular Duhok, Arbil, and Suleimani. Never fully. They were always fighting in those cities, and both sides were kind of calmed down after the US invasion from 2003 until 2014, until ISIS came. So they were a federal region, but the problem was, Iraqi constitution is not followed. Nobody followed the rule. So if they follow the constitution, both the Kurds and Iraq have responsibilities and things to do. So if they follow the rule, but unfortunately, because everyone is in Iraq, Turkey is in Iraq, Iran is Iraq. So the Arabic countries are in Iraq. I think there's not Iraq in Iraq. So otherwise, that's why it's really hard to solve this problem.
If I could comment on
Yeah,
that, if I
sure.
may. You should also, there is a softish border between Baghdad-run Iraq and the Iraqi Kurdistan region. That's true. I've been
Yeah.
back and forth myself many times. But there's also a border between the KDP-run Kurdistan region and the PUK-run Kurdistan region. There is not actually a single Kurdistan region de facto. There are in fact two Kurdistan regions. And it goes back to the old principalities you showed from the Ottoman Empire of, Baban and what was the other?
Soran, Bahdi.
Soran and Baban. And it's the same sort of, the PUK controls the old Baban and the KDP controls. So it's a very complicated situation. So that there is not the kind of Kurdish unity that my good friend here would like to see, even in Iraq.
Yeah, I mentioned the tribe. I mean, it's like a tribal administration in current Iraqi Kurdistan. I mentioned that very shortly. There's internal problems between the Kurdish parties who's in power, because whenever there's a prime minister from KDP, the vice prime minister always from PUK, so each one running their areas, and this kind of tribal thinking, it is available in Iraqi Kurdistan, and that's why we were not really successful in running our region. That, I mean, everyone sees that, and we clearly see that. Is
The
there?
Middle East is a complicated place.
Yeah.
So the Kurdish population, as I understand it from your presentation, spread out between 3 to 4 different countries.
4 different countries.
4 different countries. And as such, in my eyes, at least as I see them, they would face different political realities potentially in those countries. And they all have different leaders amongst these different Kurdish groups. So do they coordinate, these different groups of Kurdish people? Do they coordinate with one another politically? And if so, how do they deal with the various political realities that they may be facing? Are they headed in one direction politically, or do they all have different ideas as to where, what direction to head?
If I answer this question, I mean, clearly, there's 2 main Kurdish wings. One of them is led by Abdullah Öcalan. One of the other one is leading by the Barzanis. I mean, most of the Kurdish parties, including PUK, which is not clearly following Abdullah Öcalan ideology, but kind of doing that. So the Kurds in Syria, the current Kurds who are ruling Syria, and HDP party in Turkey, they are on the same road. They are on the same map. There's a wing, it's called Pajak. They are fighting Iranian government. They are also following Abdullah Öcalan ideology. In Iraq, PUK never announced that they are following the same ideology or not, but at least they are not standing against it. While on the other side, there's Barzani leading wing, which is they are ruling the Iraqi Kurdistan mainly, Arbil, and they are opposition in Syrian Kurdistan, and they have really influence on Iranian Kurdistan as well, on the Iranian Kurdistan party, in particular Democrat and Komala. So these are the 2 main wings. Also, there are Islamic parties are not powerful. The main thing, Islamic parties are not powerful in Kurdistan because what the Kurds feel the opposites. I mean, Iran is Islamic State. Turkey is currently Turkey is also like an Islamic state. So Erdogan is from Muslim Brotherhood. I mean, they like hidden way. So if you see that, if the Israeli agree with me. I mean, so the let's say the enemy of the Kurds are really Muslims, and mainly in Iran, they are really radical Muslims. So if you say something to the God, they feel that you are saying that, so they hang you. So they are radical Muslims. That's why the Kurds are trying to be more Western and more open to democracy and things like that. That could be a reason, but that's what I'm saying. There are two main wings with some minor groups as well. Thank you.
Thank you for the talk. As Professor Islam writes, really Middle East is a mess. And there are many reasons for it that you mentioned. That I think from what you're telling us is that the Kurds themselves, they are not getting along well. So that's a big problem there. Between two tribes, you know, everybody's trying to fill up this pocket. So the poor population, you know, I don't know what they can do. What would be your suggestion? From my conversation with you, we think that maybe federalism would work. Maybe in countries that you have so many different ethnic groups, the only way that you could handle is federalism on the condition that the law would be really implemented, not as written there. So that would be a solution for Iran, because Iran has that problem too. There's a major problem between the Azerbaijani Turks and the Kurds in Iran. Big one. It could be a major fight there. Has been always there. So I'm hoping a federalist system would solve this issue as long as the law is, you know, implemented. But, you know, they have to get together. If the Kurds in Iraq, that they have authority and autonomy, they cannot get along. I don't know how you could have a federalism. I'm not hopeful about that.
So there's, I mean, among every nation, there's internal problems. Similarly, the Kurds also have internal problems. That's not a big deal. I mean, when you look Turkey, there are Turkish parties, some secular, some radicals, Persians are the same, Azeris are the same. So it's among everyone is like that. But the Kurds, in my point of view, it is better for the ruling countries, Turkey, Iran, Syria, and Iraq, to solve the Kurdish problem in a peaceful way when they have power. Because when they lose their power, then they cannot blame the Kurds for what they do. Now, the Turks and the Persians, the Persians and Azeris are running Iran together. So now they have power. Why they don't let Kurdish education? It's not a big deal if you study in your language. They put Kurdish language teacher as an example. Zara Mohammadi was Kurdish language teacher, just like she spent 2 years in jail was teaching Kurdish. So if you behave in that way, so when you lose control over Iran, don't expect Kurds to bring flowers to you. That's just the reality. Now you have power, solve it. Because if you don't have power, nobody asks you to solve. They have different ways to solve it. So, but if you don't give the basic human rights, you cannot talk about having federalism. I lived in Turkey for 3 years. Every Turkish citizen says we are brothers and sisters. Okay, I'm saying, okay, we are brothers and sisters, but brothers and sisters should have the same rights. You speak in your language, I should speak in my language. You pray in your way, I should pray in my way. You wear your own clothes, I should wear mine. You protect your history, you should not at least destroy my history. So that's how brothers and sisters should be. Then we can share the same country. But if you come and destroy my history, let me give you a very humanistic example. In 2016, when I was in Turkey, in the town of Jizre, a poor girl, 13 years old, killed in Jizre. the Turkish army did not let the family to burn it, to put it in grave. And they put it on their fridge for 1 week. And the army didn't let the family to just come out of their home and burn it. So in this way, what do you expect whenever your situation is bad? So the Kurds are about 20 million now in Turkey. It is not a number to control it easily. You cannot control that forever because the Kurdish question is not a terrorist question at all. You call everyone who asks for the right terrorist. Is it in this way, can you solve this problem? No, at all. 100,000 people killed since 1984. So just give the cultural rights to those people and let's see if they fight, then we have something else to say. But so that's why, I mean, what I see, that's what Kurds see. You don't let people to speak in their language and you should not, I mean, expect good actions from them.
On that note, we're out of time. Before we thank our speaker, I just remind you that you can use your phone to scan that QR code and let us know what you thought of the talk. And now we thank Hewa.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.